In this place, in 939, was buried the first king of all England. In his day, a Norseman called him the greatest man in the European world. To a Frenchman, he was the most famous king of modern times. An Irishman thought him the summit of the honor of the Western world. From Iceland, from Germany and Wales, poets sang of his deeds. Renowned through the whole globe, whom God set over the English as king, plainly so that, mighty in war, he might conquer other fierce kings and crush their proud necks. And yet, who knows of Athelstan today?
Indeed, who was Athelstan? And who are you? How did you get in here? TV presenter. History? Dark Age? Oh, one moment.
History. Historians warn us that history is repeating. So it was bound to come back again someday. And that day is now. But we aren't talking about now. We're talking about the Dark Ages. Which was then. Now? Anyway. The Dark Ages of England. The biggest question about the Dark Ages will always be, why was it so dark then? Did people simply refuse to turn the lights on so they didn't have to see a medieval cat? Theories like this make sense, till you realise the sun must have existed then, so it can't have been too dark. Then you remember these Dark Ages took place in England, where the sun has never appeared. What else do we know about them Dark Ages of England? Well, apparently, it was a time long ago. Proper old, well old. Before Netflix old. Jobs didn't exist then, so just about everyone was poor. There was naught for poor people to do but go to church or die from the plague. Those who weren't praying or dying were busy burying onions in the ground, peering at the dirt to see if plants grew. They was that bored. Whilst the poors was doing this, big lads who said they were important were running around England, causing all types of mischief. They was called kings and claimed to be representatives of God. Because everyone who disagreed was too dead to disagree further. These kings were always screaming about invasions this and God that. Something about heathen foreigners coming over on boats to take the poor's money and jobs. The kings promised to deal with this problem by taking lots of money from the poor. And it wasn't like when a foreigner took money, because it's called taxes when a king does it, you absolute spanner. Thank God those times are over. Once kings had enough money, they would start big fights with the foreigners. Poors got to fight in them, which they probably thought was a nice change of pace from burying onions. No, they weren't paid. Winning is its own reward. Money can't buy you happiness, or something. The battles that came went on, only stopping when the king got tired of watching the poors die from whatever hill he was camped out on, and fucked off back home. The poors would stop burying onions, and instead start burying their friends, family, and lots of Danish people into the ground. Them's was the Dark Ages. You're probably saying, that sounds pretty boring. Where's the incest, dragons, or titties? Well, you're wrong. There was titties, and probably incest too. And while there may not have been dragons, probably because there was no CGI yet, there was loads of interesting stuff in that to talk about in the Dark Ages. Especially about kings. Many parts describing a king's life was written down on various scraps of paper, like the letters your mum gets from Uncle Prison. The one you weren't allowed to be alone with at Christmas. For eons, scraps like these about kings could only be found in books, where everyone could safely ignore them. So it was until 1979 when someone named Michael Wood found them again and decided they would make cracking good reruns for TV. Having probably sat through enough history classes to know better, Michael Wood found the best way to talk about history, the past, and the Dark Ages was not through government-funded and teacher-organised lessons that assured everyone knew the same things, at the same time, in the same ways, with the same opportunities, but instead by yelling straight into a camera strapped to the hood of a Ford Cortina while blasting down the A5. The show was called In Search of the Dark Ages, and while they was in search of the remote to change the channel, viewers noticed something different about this history show. Gone was the watering of eyes, The odds. Or the pain of learning. There was something else here. Something new and different. But not so different you wanted to smash in its bloody stupid gob with the nearest stick. That difference could have been that the presenter acknowledged who was in the room and talked at them, confirming many people's theories that TV folk can see who is watching them, and that it was right to steal the mail from your neighbour who was clearly a Martian. Or it was just because Michael Wood was cute and wasn't annoying even when he talked endlessly about mounds of dirt. Unlike presenters who came before, Mike even looked different. Gone was some old geezer puffing away on a pipe. Wood talks to you about all them famous dead folk while wearing bell-bottoms and sheepskin coats. After all, what's the use of talking about the past unless you also look like you stumbled out of it? He was always moving from scene to scene, never taking a break and never breaking a sweat. Some say he has an avid interest in history, others, ADD. In some parts, instead of walking through a dreary museum and calling it a day, Michael, true to his surname, gets absolutely lost in the woods while looking for Viking gold. Next, he's yelling at you in a helicopter, possibly threatening to toss you out of it if you don't appreciate his pronunciation of weird Dark Age Viking words.
Like Sprotbra and Barnbra, and one of them, Mexbra or Mexbor.
Wood chopped off the boring bits about normal people in history, leaving only the most interesting stories here about famous gizzards. Gizzards like Alfred the Great, Offa, Eric Bloodaxe, or the only one with king in his name, King Arthur, who we actually aren't sure was a king, or an Arthur, or anything at all, really. Shockingly, despite stage names like William the Conqueror or Boudica, none of these role types had SoundClouds or OnlyFans. Still, their lives was fascinating, full of bloodshed, lost conquest, and maybe one day, dragons, if they can get studio funding. Michael Wood speaks to viewers about them with the breathless zeal and interest of a friend talking about his latest girlfriend. The one that is, the one. Not like that last slag. The entire show is backed with loads of wonderful 70s electronic music, which plays eerily in the background like the alluring and slightly menacing honk of a goose, coming from somewhere just ahead in the fogs of time. Maybe pecking at its reflection in the Best One's storefront. Equally good, the 1970s TV visuals are striking, with giant computer-drawn swords and axes whizzing about, spinning around your head, with flames dancing like that time your friends said the brownies were edible for the laser show. What does that even mean? Brownies are always edible. Have you seen my keys? Why is your dog talking to me in French? Where am I? Oh, terribly sorry. Where was I? Right. In Search of the Dark Ages is excellent in many ways. For its dynamic pace, its constantly changing settings, and for Michael Wood's easy candor and knowledge. However, its greatest strength is in how the show exposes itself to you, revealing big things you may not have known could fit inside your head. What? I mean ideas. The show's most profound idea and lesson is the importance of history. The importance is not what's in your internet searches. It's not in remembering things. It's not in knowing names and dates or where you left your car keys. It's not even in knowing who killed that one bloke, his whole family, the dog, and anyone who ever petted the dog too. The importance of history is in recognizing that it's a living thing. It's you. You, after all, are one more character in this long tale that seemingly cannot be cancelled, ever. By watching the show and becoming familiar with history's patterns, we may recognize ourselves in these figures who came before, rich and poor alike. We might even learn that they felt as we did, feared as we did, and most importantly, were just as effing lost as we are in most things. Hopefully, we come away from In Search of the Dark Ages having found the truth. Hopefully the car keys too. Above all else, Michael Wood hopes we go on honouring the struggle of those who came before us. Those who built the future we now live in, and thankfully died before they could see how much we mucked it up. Even if we cannot trust the judgment of people who hadn't yet invented baths, at least we can use the time they gave us to better maintain the garden they buried all those onions and Danes in. Please check out In Search of the Dark Ages before they get lost again. And let me know if you see my car keys. I just had them. I bet it's that neighbour probably working with the dog again. I swear, this is why I burn mailboxes. You just can't trust the government. Where are my brownies?
All of these things are designed to frighten a monkey.